You felt it, haven't you? That gnawing, that deep, unrelenting battle inside you. The world may see you as composed, but within, chaos rages. Spiritual warfare isn't just a lofty concept, it's real. And if you're here, it's likely that you've been through it. Perhaps you're still in the trenches, wondering if there's a light at the end of this tunnel, or if the weight of the world will crush you entirely. But let me tell you this, the struggle you face is not a sign of defeat. It's the precursor to your 10x growth. Let me ask you something, who are you when no one is watching? When the noise of the world fades, when you're left with nothing but your thoughts, your wounds, and your questions, who are you? That's where the seeds of transformation are planted. You see, spiritual warfare strips us down to our core, peeling away the layers of ego, comfort, and illusion. It forces us to confront the parts of ourselves we've ignored or hidden. And why? Because you, as a chosen one, are meant to rise above the ordinary. But before you can ascend, you must first endure the fire. In spiritual warfare, the battlefield is your mind, your heart, your soul. The enemy isn't always external, it's internal. It's the self-doubt, the fear, the resentment, the guilt. And yet, these challenges are not your enemies in the truest sense. They are teachers. Think about it. If you never wrestled with doubt, how would you ever learn faith? If you never felt the sting of betrayal, how would you understand forgiveness? If you never faced the dark, how could you appreciate the light?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
But here's where it gets tricky. Most people, when faced with spiritual warfare, either flee or freeze. They give in to the pain, numb themselves, or deny the battle altogether. And that's where chosen ones are different. You don't have the luxury of running. You don't have the option to quit. Why? Because there's a calling on your life. You know it. You felt it. You've seen glimpses of what you're meant to be, even if the vision is foggy. But that calling comes with a cost. Let's talk about the cost. Spiritual warfare will cost you relationships. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you your old identity. And here's the kicker, it's supposed to. Because the version of you that entered this battle isn't the version of you that will emerge victorious. Growth demands sacrifice. The question is, are you willing to let go of the old to step into the new? Think about the last time you felt like giving up. Maybe it was last week. Maybe it was this morning. That moment, that raw, vulnerable moment, was a crossroads. And if you're still here, if you're still breathing, then you chose to keep going. Do you understand how powerful that is? To endure, to persist. Even when everything in you screams to stop, that's the mark of a chosen one. That's the foundation of your 10x growth. But let me be brutally honest with you, endurance alone isn't enough. Survival isn't the goal. Growth is. And growth requires more than just enduring the battle, it requires learning from it. So I ask you, what has your warfare taught you? What patterns have you noticed? What wounds keep reopening? What truths have you been avoiding? These questions aren't easy, but they're necessary, because the answers will reveal the next steps in your journey. Here's a truth that many people miss: the enemy doesn't attack what isn't valuable. The very fact that you're facing this level of resistance is proof of your potential. No thief breaks into an empty house. No general wastes resources on an unimportant target. You are being attacked because you are valuable, because you are chosen, because you have a purpose that threatens the status quo. And that purpose isn't just about you. It's about the lives you're meant to impact, the legacy you're meant to leave. But let's pause here for a moment. I want you to really think about this. What if your greatest pain is also your greatest gift? What if the very thing you're fighting against is the thing that will propel you to your destiny? It's a paradox, isn't it? That the thing causing you the most anguish could also be the catalyst for your growth. But that's how transformation works. The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly without the struggle of the cocoon. The diamond doesn't form without pressure. The warrior doesn't emerge without the battle. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with a choice. You can either view spiritual warfare as a curse or as an opportunity. You can either let it break you or let it build you. And that choice, my friend, is yours alone. But let me warn you, growth isn't linear. Just because you've survived one battle doesn't mean the war is over. In fact, the closer you get to your breakthrough, the more intense the warfare becomes. Why? Because the enemy knows you're on the verge of something great. And that's where many people falter. They mistake the increased intensity for a sign that they're losing, when in reality, it's a sign that they're winning. So I ask you again, are you willing to endure the fire? Are you willing to confront the parts of yourself that scare you? Are you willing to let go of what no longer serves you, even if it hurts? These aren't just rhetorical questions. They're the questions that will determine whether you experience 10x growth or remain stuck in the same cycle. Take a moment to reflect on where you are right now. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally. What battles are you fighting? What lessons are you resisting? What growth are you denying yourself because it feels too painful or too uncertain? These are the questions you need to sit with, because the answers hold the key to your transformation. And remember this, you're not alone. Even in the darkest moments, even when it feels like the entire universe is against you, there is a presence, a force, a divine energy guiding you, rooting for you, empowering you. You may not always feel it, but it's there. And it's waiting for you to align with it, to trust it, to let it lead you through the storm. So, as we close this part of the journey, I leave you with one final question. What would happen if you stopped resisting the battle and started embracing it? What if, instead of fighting the fire, you allowed it to refine you? What if, instead of fearing the darkness, you chose to become the light? Take a deep breath. Reflect on that. And when you're ready, we'll dive deeper into how to harness the lessons of spiritual warfare for exponential growth. Pain is the great equalizer. No matter who you are, where you've been, or what you've achieved, pain will knock on your door. For chosen ones, though, pain doesn't just knock, it breaks in, sets up camp, and refuses to leave until you've learned what it came to teach you. But here's the thing about pain, it's not your enemy. It's your alchemist. It transforms, it refines, it builds. The question isn't whether pain will come, it's what you'll do with it when it does. Let's revisit the battle you've been fighting. Maybe it's a relationship that's fallen apart, a dream that seems out of reach, or a season of isolation that feels unbearable. Whatever it is, I want you to look at it through a different lens. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me, ask, what is this trying to teach me? That shift in perspective is where alchemy begins. You see, pain has a way of surfacing the things we've buried, the fear we've ignored, the insecurities we've masked, the lies we've told ourselves. It's uncomfortable, sometimes unbearable, but it's necessary. Because you can't grow into the fullness of who you're meant to be while carrying the weight of who you've been. Pain forces you to confront and release what no longer serves you. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine you're climbing a mountain. At the base, you're carrying a heavy backpack filled with unnecessary items, things you thought you needed but don't. As you ascend, the weight becomes unbearable. You have a choice. You can either keep carrying the load and risk collapsing under its weight, or you can stop, unpack the bag, and let go of what's holding you back. Pain is that moment of realization. It's the signal that something needs to be released so you can continue your ascent. But here's the challenge: letting go isn't easy. Sometimes the things we need to release are the very things we've clung to for security. A toxic relationship, a limiting belief, a false identity. Letting go feels like death because, in a way, it is. It's the death of the old you that was comfortable but stagnant, the you that survived but didn't thrive. And yet, every death is followed by a rebirth. So what does alchemy look like in practice? It starts with awareness. You can't transform what you don't acknowledge. Take a moment to reflect: what pain are you experiencing right now? What emotions are surfacing? What patterns are repeating in your life? These aren't random occurrences. They're clues, breadcrumbs leading you to the parts of yourself that need healing. Once you've identified the source of your pain, the next step is acceptance. This is where most people get stuck. They resist their pain, deny it, or try to numb it. But resistance only prolongs the process. What you resist persists. Acceptance, on the other hand, is liberating. It's not about liking or condoning your pain, it's about acknowledging its presence and its purpose. Here's a deep question for you: what if the thing you're most afraid of feeling is the very thing that will set you free? What if, instead of running from your pain, you leaned into it? What if you allowed yourself to feel the fullness of it, to sit with it, to let it teach you? This isn't about wallowing or becoming consumed by your pain. It's about honoring it as a part of your journey. After awareness and acceptance comes action. Transformation isn't passive. It requires you to actively engage with your pain and use it as fuel for growth. This is where the alchemy happens. Pain, when processed and integrated, becomes wisdom. Fear transforms into courage. Loss becomes clarity. Betrayal births boundaries. But this process isn't automatic, it's intentional. One of the most powerful tools for alchemy is gratitude. I know that sounds counterintuitive. How can you be grateful for pain? But gratitude isn't about ignoring your pain or pretending it doesn't hurt. It's about recognizing the gifts hidden within it. Think back to a time when you experienced significant growth. Chances are it was preceded by a season of pain. Gratitude shifts your focus from what you've lost to what you've gained. It turns your pain into a lesson, a stepping stone, a catalyst. Another tool is forgiveness. This one's hard, but it's essential. Forgiveness isn't about condoning the actions of others or minimizing your hurt. It's about releasing the hold that pain has over you. It's about freeing yourself from the chains of resentment so you can move forward. And forgiveness isn't just for others, it's for yourself. How often do we hold on to guilt, shame, or regret, punishing ourselves for past mistakes? But growth requires compassion. You can't 10x your life if you're stuck in a cycle of self-punishment. Now, let's talk about vision. Pain without purpose leads to despair, but pain with purpose leads to growth. What's your vision? What's your why? Why are you enduring this battle? What's on the other side of it? When you have a clear vision, your pain becomes more bearable. It becomes a means to an end, not an end in itself. So I challenge you, take some time to articulate your vision. Write it down. Speak it out loud. Make it so vivid that it pulls you through the darkest moments. Here's something else to consider: you're not meant to do this alone. Spiritual warfare can feel isolating, but the truth is, you're part of a larger collective. There are others who have walked this path, who understand your struggle, who can offer guidance and support. Seek them out. Whether it's a mentor, a community, or even a spiritual practice, don't underestimate the power of connection. You don't have to carry this burden alone. Now, let's get practical. What does 10x growth actually look like? It's not just about achieving external success, though, that may be a byproduct. It's about becoming the fullest, truest version of yourself. It's about living with purpose, authenticity, and alignment. It's about stepping into your power and using it to create a positive impact. But growth isn't a destination, it's a journey. And every step forward, no matter how small, is progress. So, as you reflect on this part of the journey, I leave you with this: what are you willing to let go of in order to grow? What pain are you ready to transform into power? What vision will you use to guide you through the fire? These aren't questions to answer lightly. Sit with them, journal about them, meditate on them, and when you're ready, we'll move into the final phase of this journey. So, here you are. You've faced the fire, endured the storms, and wrestled with the shadows. This isn't the end of your spiritual warfare. It never truly ends, but you've crossed a threshold. You've earned the right to step into the next chapter of your existence, the ascension. But let me warn you, living as a chosen one after the battle isn't about basking in the glory of survival. It's about responsibility. It's about alignment. It's about living in a way that reflects the wisdom you've gained and the growth you've achieved. Let me ask you this: what does it mean to live as a chosen one? Pause and really think about that. It's not a title, it's a way of being. It's a commitment to walking in truth, even when it's inconvenient. It's a dedication to living with purpose, even when the world tempts you with distractions. It's a willingness to carry the wisdom of your battles and use it to elevate not just yourself, but those around you. You see, spiritual warfare doesn't just transform you for your own sake, it transforms you for the sake of others. The 10x growth you've experienced isn't meant to be hoarded. It's meant to ripple outward, touching lives, shifting perspectives, and creating change. This is the mantle of the chosen one to rise, not just for yourself, but for the collective. But let's be real, living in this way isn't easy. The world doesn't always celebrate growth. In fact, it often resists it. People will question you, misunderstand you, and sometimes even oppose you. Why? Because your growth forces them to confront their own stagnation. Your light exposes their shadows, and not everyone is ready for that. So how do you navigate this? How do you stay true to your path when the world around you pulls at you to shrink back? The first step is understanding that your identity is no longer tied to external validation. This is one of the greatest lessons of spiritual warfare. Your worth doesn't come from the applause of others, the labels you wear, or the roles you play. It comes from within. It comes from the divine essence that resides in you. When you truly grasp this, criticism loses its sting. Rejection no longer defines you. You become unshakable. But being unshakable doesn't mean being rigid. It means being rooted. Picture a tree. Its roots go deep, anchoring it firmly in the ground, but its branches remain flexible, bending with the wind rather than breaking. This is how you must live. Grounded in your truth, yet adaptable. Resilient yet open. Strong yet compassionate. Let's talk about alignment. Now that you've experienced growth, your life must reflect it. This means your actions, your choices, your relationships, all of it must align with the person you've become. And here's the catch: growth often requires you to shed what no longer fits. This could mean letting go of toxic relationships, stepping away from environments that drain you, or even leaving behind old dreams that no longer resonate. Take a moment to reflect what in your life no longer aligns with who you've become. What are you holding on to out of fear, comfort, or obligation? These aren't easy questions, but they're necessary. Because alignment isn't just about saying yes to what's right, it's about saying no to what's wrong. It's about creating space for the new by releasing the old. But alignment isn't just about subtraction, it's also about addition. Now that you've grown, what will you add to your life? What habits will you cultivate? What practices will you adopt? What boundaries will you set? Growth isn't sustainable without structure. You need systems in place to support the new version of you. This could be a morning routine that grounds you, a spiritual practice that nourishes you, or a community that uplifts you. Whatever it is, build it intentionally. Now let's address the elephant in the room: fear. Even after growth, fear doesn't disappear. It evolves. It takes new forms. Maybe now it's the fear of stepping into your power, of being truly seen, of failing at the next level. But here's the thing: fear is a byproduct of expansion. The more you grow, the more fear you'll encounter. Not because you're weak, but because you're stepping into the unknown. And the unknown is where magic happens. So how do you face this new fear? By remembering the battles you've already won. Think back to the moments when you thought you wouldn't make it, when the pain felt unbearable, when the odds were stacked against you. And yet here you are. You didn't just survive, you grew. You transformed. You ascended. Let your past victories remind you of your resilience. But let me ask you this: what would your life look like if you stopped letting fear dictate your decisions? What could you accomplish if you chose courage over comfort, faith over doubt, action over hesitation? These aren't just hypothetical questions, they're the gateway to your next level. As a chosen one, you're called to live with intentionality. This means every decision, every action, every word should reflect your highest self. But don't confuse intentionality with perfection. You're still human. You'll still stumble. You'll still have moments of doubt. The difference is, now you have the tools to recover. You've learned how to turn pain into power, how to extract wisdom from adversity, how to rise after every fall. And this brings us to the final piece of the puzzle: impact. Ascension isn't just about personal growth, it's about collective elevation. Your journey, your battles, your victories, they're not just for you. They're for the people who will cross your path, the lives you'll touch, the legacy you'll leave. Think about it every time you share your story, every time you offer a kind word, every time you stand in your truth, you create a ripple effect. You show others what's possible. You inspire them to face their own battles, to embark on their own journeys, to step into their own power. This is the ultimate purpose of your growth: to be a beacon, a guide, a catalyst for others. But let me ask you one last question: what will you do with your ascension? How will you use your growth to serve others? How will you honor the battles you fought by helping others fight theirs? These questions aren't just philosophical, they're practical. They're the blueprint for your life moving forward. So as we close this chapter, I leave you with this: your journey doesn't end here. It's only beginning. The battles you faced have prepared you for a life of purpose, power, and impact. And while the road ahead won't be easy, it will be worth it. Because you are chosen. You are capable. You are ready. Now go. Live as the chosen one you are. Embrace your growth. Share your light. And never forget, the battle wasn't just about survival, it was about ascension. Thank you for walking this path. Your journey matters. Your growth matters. And the world is waiting for the gift of you.